Chapter 5. The Guest is Always. The next day she was up before dawn. She dressed in one of her new A-line skirts and a blouse with a V-neck. She thought of wearing the flats, but something in her felt free enough to ignore shoes. She stood outside on her tiny balcony, wishing it was big enough for a chair so she could sit and watch the ocean. Not that it mattered. If she did put one out there, the balcony wall was too high to be able to see over it. She was getting used to her cozy bedroom, although it didn't fit her personality. It was more like staying at someone's grandmother's house, or what she imagined what staying at a grandmother's house would be like, since she had never known her grandparents. She returned to the notepad where she had started a letter to her mother, but had stopped short after. "How are you? I'm fine." It was time to work, not to worry about letters, she told herself. New waitress, new clothes, new job, ready to go. She rushed down the back stairs and into the kitchen, feeling the welcoming fragrances wrap around her like a warm comforter on a cool morning. She didn't have time to stop, as the moment she entered the kitchen, Tonak passed her 2 dishes and shooed her out the door to the dining rooms. She returned shortly after, having served a Chinese dish to a couple that had apparently never had Chinese food in their lives. They had been guests of Tonak before, though, so they were delighted. "What did you put in the food?" Melody asked, dropping into a stool as she sat to watch Tonak hover over a couple of pots on the stove. "Leeks." He thumbed through a spice rack on the counter next to the stove he was working at. Today's choice, a gas stove, 1980s era. "Why do you give people different things?" She crossed her legs, waiting for him to turn around and notice her in her new outfit, or at least nag at her for spending $300 on a skirt she was likely to spill something on. I mean, why not just make everyone hamburgers or have a particular themed restaurant? Isn't it a lot of work to make a new dish every time? "You don't like the same dishes all the time, do you?" She smirked. "You don't know much about me. You hired nearly a complete stranger." "Oh, no?" He turned, and his eyes met hers and held. "Your name is Melody Green. You're from out west. You came here to find a new home. This is the first time you've been a waitress. You've got pretty green eyes. You don't usually wear skirts, but you like to walk around barefoot. You love the ocean, and you have a fondness for baked sweets." Melody narrowed her eyes at him. "How would you know if I don't normally wear skirts?" "You walk like you're not used to it, but it looks good on you. I bet a walk on the beach would completely change your mind about skirts." She laughed. "You talk as if you've worn one before." The corner of his mouth lifted into a half smile. "Where I'm from, they don't call them skirts. Don't tell me you've worn kilts." "I've worn one, but that's not what I'm talking about." He took down a bowl and spooned out a serving from the big pot, a stew of some kind, something Italian. The savory tomato mixed with other spices and blended together with everything else he made. "You probably need to save your energy today. We're going to be busy." Her legs were a little stiff from walking and biking around the island the day before. She wasn't used to so much walking around. Was she going to be able to handle a busy day? And how did Tonak know who was coming and going? There were questions she wanted to ask, but it probably wasn't the time. "All right, I'm ready." She was just serving the dish to the newest customer when she heard the front door opening. A group of 5 people walked into the hallway. They all wore identical outfits, crisp white shirts, black trousers and name tags. One wore hers upside down. They had to be wait staff from one of the other restaurants on the island and were all crazy beautiful with gorgeous hairstyles. 3 girls, 2 guys, although one of the guys looked rather effeminate and Melody second-guessed, thinking maybe he was a girl after all. One of the girls, with slicked-back red hair and high cheekbones, grasped at Melody's hand in greeting. "You're the new waitress. I love the skirt. What's the cook like?" Melody was about to shrug it off with a smile when she realized the whole group was looking at her, waiting for her to say something. "He's nice." She wasn't sure what they were expecting. "Is he cute?" asked the effeminate man, his voice deeper than she expected, but confirming her initial impression of him. "I guess so," she said. "See?" The girl flicked her fingers at the effeminate man's chest. "I told you he wasn't 100 years old." This caught Melody off guard. No one had ever seen Tonak. He wasn't that hard to reach. Did he not get out much? "Would you all like to sit by the window?" She seated the group and had wanted to ask them about what they knew about Tonak, but they slipped into a different conversation and she didn't have the courage to interrupt. She served their drinks and disappeared. Melody continued to greet people as they walked in and helped them to pick a seat. Some seemed surprised to see her and how she handled things, because Chuck never seated people and he wasn't polite. She got the gist of this from most of the customers. However, none of them disliked Chuck. "That's just the way he is," someone said to her. She had just served drinks to the 5 waiters when in walked a short woman with a T-shirt that proclaimed Rose's Hardware Store on the front. She was as lean and hardy-looking as the 2 20-something-year-old sons she had in tow. Her overalls had paint stains, and her work boots were so dusty they left imprints on the floor. Melody fell into conversation with them the moment she offered to seat them. They'd just finished a job off the island and were worried because the client was spoiled and had complained the whole time. Rose was sure he'd be back, demanding a refund, even after she spent more than all of the money he had given them just to finish the job he'd asked of them. "You don't wear shoes," Rose said. She pointed to Melody's feet. "Oh, that's precious. I should tell you that my sons are single. They've never dated the right girl. You're single, aren't you?" "Well, I shouldn't bother you with my sons. They're far from perfect." Her sons were blushing as Rose gushed about them and their questionable behaviors. Melody barely managed to escape the conversation when another couple entered and she excused herself to seat them. Melody finished serving drinks and had hoped for a chance to take a moment to breathe, but Tonak was ready for her when she walked into the kitchen. The silver table was filled, and he had to explain to her which dish was for which person. "Ask me if you aren't sure, but I arranged the plates depending on where they're sitting." "How do you know where they're sitting? I'm the one who sat them." "You have to look at it from your perspective," he said, moving on and ignoring her question. "For example, Rose and her sons are these 3, the 5 top there." He went on to explain his method of positioning. This included each dish, as not everybody at the table got the same meal. "Do you want a tray?" Melody shook her head. "Doesn't it take practice to hold it right? I'm afraid I'll drop it. You didn't exactly hire Miss Graceful. I mean, how are you supposed to hold it with 5 different dishes on it?" "With your hands," he said with a smile. "But it doesn't matter." He moved one of the stools out from underneath the silver table and reached to roll out a smaller matching silver cart that had wheels at the bottom. "You can use this." It was just the right height for Melody, so she didn't have to slump over to push it. "Will I look silly using this?" "No, they won't even notice." He carefully put dishes on the cart for her. "I'll try to have it ready, but if it's busy, you may need to do it, so you'll remember who gets what." "It's a lot to remember," she said. "You'll get used to it." His voice was chock full of confidence, which gave her a boost of energy. She rolled out to the 5 top with her new rolling tray, and Tonak was right. They barely focused on it, as they were all gawking and wondering which dish was theirs. As soon as she put a dish in front of someone, they would immediately dive in, mesmerized. The job was simple, a fact she secretly reveled in: serve drinks, deliver food. Melody quietly pushed her cart back to the kitchen for round 2. She was just finishing up Rose's table When she heard the front door open again, she pushed her cart into the swinging door of the kitchen and stepped back into the hallway to face the bus driver who had brought her to the island. "Welcome," she said, delighted. The man's ruddy cheeks jiggled as he chortled. "So my suggestion worked out for you after all." She shrugged, but didn't manage to hide her appreciative smile. "Something like that. At least I have a job. I was thinking this place would help. I didn't realize you would be drawn in to do the helping." She laughed. "I'm just serving the food." He smiled. "Well, you're doing much more than that." She wanted to ask him what he meant, but another couple walked in behind him. She quickly seated the driver and moved on, and never did get another moment to chat, because as soon as she served him drinks, she had to bus the 5 top. When there was a lull of guests and she had a moment to stop, Tonak had her follow him into the walk-in freezer. It seemed deeper than she remembered it to be, as she carried a crate and followed behind him. She blew off the thought. She had been nervous the first time she'd been in there, so her memory was faulty. Tonak replaced some ingredients in exchange for others. She stood close to him, trying to steal some of his warmth because of how chill the place was. She wondered if she should place her flip-flops in the kitchen for times when she needed to walk into the freezer. Her feet were tingling. "Lunch isn't going to be nearly as bad. I imagine you're hungry, though." It didn't feel like just breakfast because he didn't serve a single breakfast item. He didn't seem to care what time it was. He just served whatever he wanted. She was starving, and the mention of lunch for herself set her stomach to complaining and did it loud enough that she blushed. He laughed. "I'm sorry. I should have made something before, but we had some very early arrivals. Rose showed up before dawn this morning, too, before they went out on their job." "Is she a regular?" "They all are, in their own way." He finished making his selections and shooed her out of the fridge. "There's 2 more tables coming in now. When they've been served, I'll have something ready for you." The 2 more tables were singles. The first one was a petite blonde who worked in the same boutique as Greta and complimented Melody on her blouse. Melody seated her near one of the windows. The other one was a man who hadn't been there before, and a single look at him told Melody everything she needed to know. A pale band on his left ring finger, a circle of a ring indented in his pocket, slicked back dark hair that curled under his ears, 70s-style sunglasses. Melody didn't like him. "Would you follow me, please?" Melody resisted the urge to have him seat himself in the way Chuck ordered people to do. She escorted him to a table near the back, away from some of the other guests. She took his drink order, coffee, and she disappeared into the kitchen before his eyes could make their way back up from her breasts. Tonak had only 1 dish ready for her. "Where's the creepy guys?" He hesitated. "Come here," he said. Melody blinked at him. Did they have time for this? She walked around the table until she was standing in front of him. For a moment he gazed at her eyes, and then suddenly he looked dizzy and he stumbled forward a little. She reached for him, wanting to steady him before he fell down. She grasped at his wrist. The kitchen slipped away. She was standing in front of the creepy man, only he wasn't in their restaurant. He was standing outside of a condo near the beach, looking up at a half-naked woman who was shouting at him from a window. He yelled something back, but the words were slurred and echoed, like a dream language that didn't make sense. Melody could smell the cool night air around them. Stars twinkled above. It was like watching a movie. Only when she blinked her eyes, she didn't miss a moment. The creepy man waved an arm, yelled some more, and the woman pulled back, drawing the curtain closed. He stepped away, yanked a ring from his hand, and shoved it into his pocket. She heard Tonak saying her name. Another hard blink, and she was back in the kitchen. Tonak had his hands on her shoulders. She tried to refocus her eyes, breathing in slowly. It was as if she was waking up from a deep dream. "What You're letting the food get cold. He turned her around so she was facing the dish he had already set down for her. The other one will be ready when you get back. But what about... He turned his back on her, throwing together meat and vegetables into a pan on the stove. He was too involved in his work to notice her still standing there, trying to figure out what had just happened. She ran the dish to the table with the girl from Tissue. The woman barely glanced up at her once the food was in front of her. Melody was grateful for that. She imagined she was pale after what had happened in the kitchen with Tonak. Again, Melody watched the same sort of dreamlike state take over as the girl automatically took bites. Hey, that looks good. I want some of that, the man said from across the room. He was trying to get the single girl's attention, but she wasn't responding. She was intent on the food. Rude, he said, if you don't want to talk to me. She can't, Melody said. She glanced at him. She still didn't like him, but now she was sorry for him. Was what she had just seen at all true? It looked like it was a fight and she'd kicked him out. She wondered why. She wondered why he came here. She wondered what Tonak was making, and why when she touched him, she saw all these things. It wasn't the same as the first time she'd eaten his food. She returned to the kitchen and was immediately given a bowl of something that looked like a stew. She delivered the meal to Creepy Guy, ignored the protests about how it wasn't what he wanted. By the time she got back to the kitchen, there was a coffee cake waiting for her. The scent of cinnamon and butter and sugar sent her stomach to turbo growling. Quizzing Tonak could wait. She had a coffee cake to attend to. Tonak was busy storing leftovers into dishes, and she forked her coffee cake, swallowing down the sweet delight and ignoring the glass of milk on the table. No dream came to her as she had experienced the first time, but it was still delicious. When she finished, she steered her rolling tray back out to the front. Everyone was gone by then, and there were heaping piles of plates and gifts. On the creepy man's table was the wedding ring. The bus driver left a silver flask. Melody put the gifts on the big mahogany desk in front. That seemed to be the place to put them. She cleared the tables, wiping them down and dragging the dirty dishes back into the kitchen. Melody. Tonak placed the last covered dish into the fridge and turned to her as she picked up the broom. The customers had cleared for the moment. There wasn't anything else for her to do but a general clean-up. This is for you. Tonak held the silver flask up to her. She blinked at it. How did he get it? What do you mean? Miles. He didn't really leave this for me. He left it for you. She picked it up delicately. The flask looked well used. The top had scratches and the edges looked worn. There were words scratched into the bottom, but they were faded and hard to read. Why would he leave it? Why does anyone leave anything here? Tonak took a deep breath in. Well, he said, and then let out the breath. You inspired him. I don't understand, she said. She held the flask to him. I don't think I did anything. If he left it for you, it's yours. Keep it. Tonak walked away, pulling up the food crates for another round of exchanging items in the walk-in freezer. Melody floundered for a while, wondering what to do with the flask. She raced back to her room to put it on the dresser. As the day wore on, she remained quiet. And he never volunteered the information. She thought of the vision she'd had, of the flask of Tonak and his strange food. Melody wondered about toxic mold in the walls. Or maybe it was a drug in Tonak's food causing hallucinations. She only knew that Tonak could do something no one else could do, and she was determined to figure out exactly how it worked.